So Martha, can you give us some advice about what we do here? We just open it and close it?
Well, since it was advertised for 7:15,
Oh,
we can't do it until then, even though we have, but we're.
Well, we can leave, we can close it and open it and leave John and Joe here, and we can all go.
Yeah.
No, that's your version of
oh.
We had a controller for the clock.
Well, then, what are there, are there,
David, what time do you have on your watch? 7:10?
David, what was your answer?
12.
David wants to know what your answer was when I said that you've been unconfrontational lately. What was your answer? I forget.
I said I am mellowing.
Melon with age.
Yes, right.
We're not getting.
Well, I also said, you know, look out anyway, you know, send me and I'll. Okay, well,
God, I
we,
remember those-
we're
Martha,
week
remember
of
those
one,
days on
so
the
we should
planning
call
board?
the meeting to
I said
order.
you.
okay, so, then I will call the meeting of the planning board to order as of 7:01 on Tuesday, the 16th of October. And, we are gonna have a discussion of where we go with joint public hearing at 7:15, but in the meantime, Martha?
Well, we have, does anybody need a copy of the agenda?
Sure.
Yes, some people do.
It's a good idea.
Okay, there's a slide actually, so I'll hand it out, so.
Okay.
You have one?
Well, we have two items of old business that we might be able to discuss, on where,
We also have meeting minutes.
and we have meeting minutes. Okay, let's do the meeting minutes, because I reviewed them. Did anybody have comments on the meeting minutes? I was okay with them.
Did
Anybody?
everybody see Kathleen's?
Yes, I saw Kathleen's.
Were they added in, was that what happened? Your,
I was just clarifying a couple things.
Yeah,
On
no,
her,
I thought it was
on her
good.
presentation that she made,
And I
Yeah.
have copies of the amended ones, if anybody needs them.
right. So if all those are okay, can I have a motion on the minutes?
yes, I move that we accept the minutes of October the 2nd, 2013.
Linda can't second.
I can't, that wasn't here.
I'll second it.
Oh, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
On the revised stormwater rules, we have a subcommittee that's been, stormwater regulations, that's different, I'm sorry. So
Yeah.
John and Martha, we have the in-house review that's continued.
Yeah, have we gotten anything in the last couple of weeks, Martha, from anybody?
No, Ed
No.
is the only person.
No, I've got, we've gotten two verbals, one from Ed on the Concom,
Yeah.
and another one from Millennium. And Millennium's comment basically was no comment.
Oh, really?
Didn't have any, I mean, I didn't ask them to rewrite it, obviously, we're not gonna get a free review.
Right.
And have them rewrite it for us, but they had no objections. I'm still waiting for one other engineer, and then,
Who was gonna do it, Steve? Was it
Pardon
Steve?
me?
Who else was doing
Steve
it?
Sawyer.
Steve Sawyer.
Yeah, no, not Steve Sawyer,
Linda, what are they talking about?
John
Stormwater
Hargreaves.
reviews, right,
Hargreaves. I couldn't reach Steve Sawyer.
couldn't.
He didn't return several phone calls, and this is the kind of a thing you don't bug people to death on. When you're asking a favor, I just let it go. If I bump into him before we publish it, then I'll find out what his issues are, why he didn't call me back.
Okay.
He's a pretty friendly guy, and he and I have always gotten along. I don't know why he didn't call me back.
So at this stage, we're expecting these in-house comments, if any, within the next 2 weeks?
Else, if we haven't gotten anything by now, I don't think for the most part, Doug, I did kind of twist his arm. I really want Doug to read it.
Yeah, I think Doug is the critical person for
Oh, yeah.
us. so.
Yeah, except for Doug, I don't think there's anybody else. I did ask last night all of the Concom members to read it.
Okay,
But Doug especially, I got in before the meeting.
all right.
Really need Doug's comments.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
In the document we talked about before, you mentioned replacing the, what was the old requirements for rain precipitation?
For which?
With the Cornell University data?
Oh, yeah, right.
We were replacing, which document? The TP 40?
We're replacing the DEP document, which references something that was done in the early
Yeah,
sixties by the Weather.
And the name of the document slips my mind. What's the name of the document? Is it the TP 40?
It's- Which document, Kathleen? I'm sorry. There's two documents. One is the Weather Bureau's from the sixties. The other is the Cornell.
No, the first one.
The first one is called TP 40.
Yeah, so it's TP 40.
Yes.
Now, you've made the edits in our new documents going to reference the Cornell document, correct? Okay. I'm only asking because I've learned more about this over the past month.
Yeah.
So I know that the TR 55 design requirements for
Yeah.
small watersheds,
I've
re-
got that from that's not in there.
that's not in there because that references the TP 40. So I was just wondering if we still kept that in there, it'd be a conflict of
Well, we didn't keep TR 55 in there for one thing.
Okay.
TR 55 is absolutely not acceptable for detention. And why let somebody do a program that says detention happens to, on any
Right.
major project?
I mean, this is a long
Why
while
let
ago,
them
but
do
I
it?
remember discussing that.
I'm sorry?
I remember
Yeah.
discussing
So what is-
that.
Yeah, the TP 55 was revised, but they only got the revision
Okay.
as far as the runoff amount. TP 55 does not deal adequately with the routing.
But TP 55 is your design requirements. TP 40 is your data, your
Okay.
precipitation data. So they're
It's-
two different
it's the
things.
rainfall amounts, yes.
So that's the TP 40.
That's the TP 40.
Yes. However, the TP 55 is the design requirements that are referenced right now for engineers when doing small watersheds.
Well, we did not include TR 55 as an acceptable method. We said TR 20 or a commercial program based upon it. That's what, the way it reads. now.
Okay.
Well, it seems,
Virtually everybody uses
right,
hydro.
and if I could interject only that if these have been shifted since you've read it last, maybe you could reprint the version that has these incorporated
No,
in.
I'm good.
You're
I'm
okay?
good. I'm just going to look into what you told me
All
and
right.
get back to you. That's
Okay.
all.
Okay.
I'm just trying to follow along with what you're doing
Sure.
because right now I don't understand what you're doing and I'm just going to ask a little bit more.
The TP 40 is generally regarded as passé because it's, for one thing, it's 50 years old. The Cornell study is not that far off.
I'm fully aware with
You're
that,
okay
and I
with
agree
that?
with that.
Good.
It's the TP 55. I don't understand what you're replacing with it.
Well, we're not replacing it, we're just Xing it out.
Yep.
TR 20 or HydroCAD or some other commercial program. There's several commercial programs that do way more than TR 20. TR 20 is not user friendly. It's accurate, it's a pain in the neck to use, and there's so many things it doesn't do
Okay.
that HydroCAD does.
Okay, I'll look into that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we're saying the same thing. I think.
We are on the TP 40, definitely.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
You know.
Does anybody else have any comments on the stormwater regs and where we are with them, or questions, David?
My
What's
only
that?
question, and I'm, having a blank moment here about what it is, but, with the review that we're not doing tonight, 67 through 69.
Yes.
Okay, part of that, we were advised, did or did not fall into, what's the damn area that comes?
ACE?
Yes.
ACEC.
okay. How does the ACEC play into what you are doing in stormwater?
We are not mentioning ACEC specifically that I can recall. I haven't read it for, a few
Right,
weeks. This
no,
has
I
been- Well, a
understand.
few months, as a matter of fact.
Yeah,
But I don't
right.
think we left anything in there on ACEC. What it does do is saying special areas, and ACEC is one of them, require higher rules. And one of them, for example, instead of the initial flush being the first half inch of rain, it goes, that you have to treat, it goes to the first full inch.
Okay,
Okay, but
Okay.
that is also true, it's not just ACECs, it's also true of the watershed district and a bunch of other things that escape my mind. Critical things,
I just wondered when,
shellfish beds.
yeah, when I was looking at that, it strikes me that coastal communities, of which we are one,
Yeah,
should maybe cite things like the ACEC and shellfish issues specifically in the text,
yeah,
simply because other communities don't face that issue. We do all the time.
I'm fine with that, I think
Would
that's a
you
good
be-
suggestion, to make a big deal of those.
That's just a different designation of a quality, a more sensitive area, though. You're saying that you want more stringent requirements there?
No,
Or you're
I'm
just
s-
pointing them out?
Pointing them out.
I'm
Yeah,
saying pointing
okay.
them out, because sometimes people don't review stuff. If, for example, to go back, a year or so, if we had had a very stringent requirement that people had to look at things like, reservoir areas in relation to the so-called Martin Burns development, which never happened, we might never have gone through all of that horrendous, time-wasting process if they had been directed to as David, when he was on the board, directed to go look at it and determine whether in fact they were affected by this thing definitively. And when they actually did, the whole project blew up.
Wasn't
So
that
that's-
part of our fault, though, because it wasn't mapped correctly at the time on our mapping?
No, frankly, it was, I won't say we were blameless, but I think we had a weaselly engineer. Sorry about that, John. We had somebody.
That
who
was not John.
frankly- No. We had somebody who was in fact not doing his homework properly. And
Are you
did
talking
not-
Oh,
about our guy or their guy?
Their guy.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or realizing it sometimes and just kind of hoping nobody notices.
Exactly.
That does happen from time
And we had to have an
I
abutter
think they
who,
just had no clue it was there.
Michelle, who got on it and the whole thing. That's.
All right.
I know the-
So where we are is, you're gonna be hopefully finished with the peer review within 2 weeks, something like that.
Probably, yeah.
And then we have to have a discussion, I guess, with others about where the stormwater review rests.
Right.
Because right now it's with the planning board, and we've all kind of thought that maybe it should go with the Conservation Commission.
At last night's meeting, I got a vote going in Doug was always in favor of it.
Right.
I thought it'd be a bit better if it was a vote of the whole group. And they are quite happy to take it on.
Okay,
They don't see it as a great deal more work, since the vast majority of jobs that will kick in this sort of review are abutting wetlands anyway.
right.
The good stuff's all for the most part. Not quite, but most of it's gonna be a wetland thing anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
um,
And I think the only concern we've got remaining is that since those stormwater regs are gonna be incorporated into the subdivision regs as a matter of course,
Sure.
that's where we would
Yeah.
still play a role. Okay,
Now, that, again, that could be something, whatever the planning board wants to do. I think the Conservation Commission, if it is a subdivision, is going to be in that with both feet anyway.
Sure.
If it is a wetland. It's pretty hard to do a subdivision of any size without abutting a wetland.
in this
Those
town, sure,
days are about over with.
I think you're right, yeah.
So, I don't think that's a real issue, but it's something that I would agree, would have to be worked out.
Okay,
So, and the one remaining, I do want Joe to review it. I want him to review it in detail. You know, the other people I'm saying, take a look, but Joe is very knowledgeable about it, and I want him to look it over
okay,
for the Conservation Commission.
okay, okay,
The Conservation Commission wants that too,
they do,
yes,
okay.
and I want it.
I have it's 7:16 there,
Yeah.
which is our official clock.
Your average them
This one, if you average them, it's 7:15.
Right.
The average.
So it's 7:15, and we would like to have a call to order of the site development permit review, and open the public hearing, and then, and
Motion to open the public meeting.
Second.
for the-
All in favor?
No, I can't, you make the motion.
I did, motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah,
okay. So we have 2 meetings that are opened, and now we need to close them. Do we need
No,
No.
do we need to have a discussion about this?
Yeah, on when we're gonna continue it to.
Two things here. One, first of all, we have received the certification from Chuck that he viewed the video from the first session, and so he can participate in the deliberation, the proceedings regarding the public hearing. So I will give Kathy the original and make a copy for our file. So he's official. And the second thing is that we have received a request from the applicant to continue the public hearing to the next planning board meeting scheduled for November 6th. They're not quite done with the drainage, the revisions to the plan. And so she has written requests to both boards, and I have copies here for you, to continue the public hearing to November 6th. So both boards will need to vote
Motion
to continue.
I have a question before we vote on that. John, when you took the Concom out there, and they took a vote on site, didn't they? They didn't? I thought they did.
There was no vote,
We did, sorry.
and it was,
No,
What
that's right,
happened?
because Obviously, we did,
have my
because
copy.
the review wasn't back yet.
That's
Right.
right.
We
and it
had
was,
fixed, yeah.
Okay.
and they voted, Tom Mineta, the engineer, spoke with Doug yesterday, and at the Concom last night, they voted to continue their hearing to their next meeting, which is November 19th.
Okay. Okay,
So-
so a month from now, so we will meet, and will we have the Concom's, so we won't have the Concom's position?
No, next meeting will be before the Concom meeting. The saving grace for the applicant is I think our appeal period is like 10 days, and this group's
Ah.
appeal period is 30 days. So we're only gonna be a week, 2 weeks apart.
Okay,
We should have the vote, hopefully, if he gets it to us, if we have time to look at it.
sometime in early
And
December.
Joe
will
has
be-
time to look at it.
okay.
Well,
But
the-
we should be good by a week or so.
Why did you continue, why did the Conservation Commission continue theirs till next month?
Well, for one thing, he didn't show because he asked for a continuance.
Oh, Tom wanted yours continued as well.
Yeah,
Right,
we,
right.
yeah, for the same reasons we're doing it.
Okay,
Because
Okay.
There's
All right.
still major
Then-
differences between Joe and he.
okay,
Okay.
then it's on the applicant.
So the sequence is, Tom Mineta, the engineer, is going to have the drawings ready by the beginning of next week. He will get them to Joe Sirwatka, the review engineer, immediately. And Joe will have time to get his comments back to Tom and to everybody else. And the
Okay,
plan is to have everything in place by the time of our hearing.
okay.
There's one thing that was done, Tom dug some test pits and Doug and I witnessed them. Were you there, Martha? The test pits? No. Doug and I witnessed them, and, he was assuming a sea soil, which is not quite the worst, and one of them was the worst and the other one was better. So the infiltration basin, which is also the detention basin, was a B soil as it turns out, which is not bad. And the, sediment forebay, which isn't supposed to infiltrate anyway, because that's the dirty stuff, that was virtually impenetrable. That was a D. That was bad stuff. So
Okay,
all in all, it worked out for him.
okay. Do you advise us how what do we need to just
So
propose?
each board needs to make a motion and a second to continue the public hearing to November 6th.
I'll make a motion for the planning board to continue to November 6th.
Do you hear a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
We need a time too, right?
7:15.
I'll make a motion, continue the special permit at 67 to 69 Newburyport Turnpike to November 6, 2013 at 7:15.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Done.
Call for a motion to close the meeting?
No, do we
No? It's just,
Continued.
you just
Continue, not
continue?
close,
if you
yeah.
close it, then it, yeah.
We go through this, we
Public
can,
hearing, because we continued it.
you're not getting out of it that easy. So, all right, so we've made the motion continue, we're done.
So that means we're done.
We're done with the
Yes, we
public
can-
hearing.
you
It was
can
good
go home
seeing
now.
you.
Yeah.
It was good seeing you.
Fun at Pitta Hall. Have fun at Pitta Hall.
Smiling.
So a second item we have here on old business is 101,
Bye, Kathy.
Newburyport Turnpike. It certainly isn't getting any better as far as I can see.
The
Well,
pace
I-
could only be described as glacial.
Right.
When we were out there, remember I told you that he had removed a good pile of the wrap.
Yeah.
He hasn't moved any since then,
He
nor
hasn't
has he
moved any
ripped
since
up
then.
any that's in place.
Right.
The other thing he did was, he got rid of the old forms and so forth. But Doug and I talked about it yesterday, and Doug is planning on writing him a letter saying the next voice he hears will be an enforcement order.
Right, I talked to Doug. I went out to the site this morning after our managers' meeting and looked around and saw the same thing that John did. None of the wrap has been taken up. There's a little pile of wrap still there,
They're
which
still
might
there,
be.
but that was a big pile before.
Right, but this-
Billy took most of it.
Right, but there is still some, and it looks like there's a new mound. And there's also some dirt with bricks in it, which wasn't there before, and the silt fence
So
is a mess.
when we met with him, he was here a month ago, and we said to him, we'll go out to the site, we'll give you a list of A, B, C, D, E, and F. These are the items we want to see addressed. Have we given him that list?
I don't think we've given him anything in writing. We
Well-
did walk.
Right,
Did
he
you?
had, he had the list, and we walked
Which
it
was from where?
from the
What-
letter that was written, sent to him after our meeting.
Okay. So is it time for us to do a follow-up letter?
I don't know, I mean, Doug is planning to write him one more,
Yeah,
Letter.
one more letter before the enforcement
Before-
order.
Okay.
The
So
enforcement order means
we'll
the
wait-
police
We'll wait
come
for
out
that
with
to
it.
happen, and then, because he's got more teeth than we do.
By
And, so let's see what happens, but he's gonna do that this week, we hope, or,
I think so.
okay. Any other comments from, I mean, I think it's a
The
disgrace.
letter that you wrote was essentially the stuff that we talked about on the site, okay.
Almost a year.
November.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is almost a year.
1 year.
And I was wondering whether he would plead, well, I'm not gonna do anything in terms of, putting in foundations and so on until the spring, so I don't have to blah, 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 blah. I don't think that's legitimate, but I'm wondering whether we need to be very specific in terms of the period of time that we expect to see some changes. In other words, do a 60-day kind of thing, so that he has the date.
So
where-
he didn't move forward like he was supposed to go ahead and do the construction. However, he had the ability to go ahead and clear the site and bring in his vehicles and operate on the site without doing anything at all.
Right.
Is that correct? There's-
Oh, well, he's
Right?
Yeah, he's certainly
Yeah.
done nothing in terms of the project. I mean, he's done nothing in terms of the project, he's just cleared the site for his trucks.
But he hasn't taken in consideration any of the stormwater issues or conservation.
No,
issues.
No,
in
it's a
matter,
negative.
worse than that, he has increased the impermeability of the site without doing any of the BMPs that compensate for that.
Also, do you believe, John, that he's brought material from off-site that
Well, the wrap.
was not there?
Oh, the wrap was
The wrap-
all from
the wrap
off-site.
Certainly wasn't
And
there.
he's got Linpack down on the small stretch of Sled Road.
Yeah.
That is granular, and it probably provides more storage than we had before in between the particles, because that's pretty crappy soil to start with. It's
Right.
sea soil. And what he brought in was, a foot or so of, pretty good gravel.
What do they call it,
with-
decomposed granite?
Pardon me?
Is that called decomposed granite?
No, the decomposed granite is something
Much
else.
finer.
Well, decomposed granite verges on being laterite. There's a very fine line there, which absolutely turns to silly putty in the rain.
Yeah.
Roads all over Vietnam were built out of laterite, and they work just fine in the dry season. Come the monsoons, the rain season, you couldn't get anything on a road. I mean, roads became virtually impassable. What they have there, that stuff, John, is tailings from the crushing operation.
I see,
Yeah.
I see, okay.
The really fine stuff has fallen through the screen, and this is the other miscellaneous junk that
Okay.
didn't turn into concrete aggregate.
So it does sound like there's not much we can do until Doug sends the letter, and we'll see what happens then, but I think we should continue to keep it on the agenda.
I would, yeah, definitely.
for ourselves and people. And then if it makes sense for us, after the letter is sent, for us to send a subsequent letter and have both arms of the government kind of pushing him, I think that, in the end, we want him to build the project. We don't want him to stop, right?
Do we have a bond on it?
Just on the road.
Bond on the road. It's one of those interesting things, in the site,
Plan review,
right?
yeah.
We could
Yeah,
have
we could
requested a
have.
bond for the entire project.
As I
But we just
suggested, I think we sort of got sidetracked because the bond appeared for the road, and.
I didn't
yeah.
know we had the ability until I went
Right.
back and started
Yeah.
looking at all the different site plan review criteria. that
In all honesty, I mean, when you go into something like this, you try not to believe
Right,
that
the
you're gonna
worst.
have to, yeah.
Right. Okay, on new business, town meeting preparation, rezoning amendments. Well, actually, I don't know if, I mean, I did take a look at all the issues that, yeah, let's talk about that first. And then, is this really from your memo that you sent out? Is that correct? Those are the town?
The-
Or you want to talk about the 22nd first?
Talk about the 22nd first. And I do have one question for the board.
Okay,
Do you want me to do that first?
yes.
In our medical marijuana moratorium, we have June 30th as of 2014 as the date. And the Attorney General's office has subsequently, I guess in the latest issue of the Beacon, which is a municipal thing, has said that they are now allowing moratoria through December 30th of 2014. So I asked Ginny what our options might be. First of all, I guess the question is whether the board feels that it might be beneficial to extend it. The question is if we put together a bylaw and it does not pass at town meeting, having the moratorium last longer gives us another chance to try for the fall.
For a while, we were individually following the goings-on in the various adjacent municipalities.
Right.
But I
and-
haven't seen what Georgetown has done with this,
Well, they're putting forward a bylaw,
a bylaw.
right,
And have
an
you-
overlay district.
Do we see what that looks like by any chance?
Yes, I thought I sent it out, maybe I didn't.
Sorry, I didn't
But
see that.
I may not have, I may have been holding on
But
to
they
it.
have a
till-
draft?
They have a draft, which,
We
and
don't- well, have you seen that by any chance? No.
No.
So,
it's an overlay district.
and
so-
is it 5 pages or something?
Um,
Probably not, too long.
It's a fair number of pages, actually. They get into some,
Well, if you do, can
Meat.
easily find it, if you could send it out.
yeah, I
think
can,
I'd
I can
appreciate
send that out. And I don't know, I asked their planner, Howard Snyder, how the public hearing went, and I haven't heard back from him yet. I did check on the municipal law unit today. Most of the moratoria so far that were passed last spring go through June 30th. I think there are only about 2 that go into December.
They were passed in what, April or May?
The latest ones I saw that were just approved were in June.
I don't know, does anybody feel
uh,
strongly about this either way, about extending it to December?
So either way, we have to come up with something. It's just a matter, and if
Time.
it doesn't pass in the spring, there's a question of whether it gives us more time, because if we don't have anything in the books, then anything goes.
That's true.
That's true.
That's true, if there's still demand to do that in the town, which I don't have a sense for.
Yeah, I mean, the only one we've had was the one for over in Byfield, and we know that the landlord is not interested in that. Ginny did say that we could, if the board wants to, could make an amendment from the floor to extend the moratorium period to December. That would need to be done in writing.
Well, in past experience, spring meeting is always when we accomplish most of our changes. By the time it comes to the fall meeting, we only really have, it seems like, a month to get everything together until we have to have everything advertised. So we're not really gaining 6 months out of it, just so everybody realizes. Our spring meeting is usually in October, sometimes in September, and you're only really gaining like a month. So it's not 6 months. Do you understand what I'm saying? It doesn't matter if it's December or if it's November or if it's October.
What is it currently?
Well,
It's June 30th.
June 30th.
Yeah.
Which means that we would have to have it ready by the spring.
May.
By the May town meeting.
Right, which is the intention, I think.
Yeah.
And so let's talk that through. What do we think that we need to do in order to fulfill the requirements that we're asking for in the delay? I mean, we need to hold 1, 2, 3, 4 public hearings, 1, 2?
Just one, just one.
Public hearing, and then come up with look at what other towns are creating, and come up with a designation of an area geographically that we think is the appropriate place to have a medical marijuana facility.
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of ways to deal with it. One would be to do an overlay district. One would just be to allow it as a permitted use in some district that's already in town, such as a commercial highway A.
So it's approved on the 22nd of next week. It gives,
It's not approved.
well, at the town meeting.
You
town
mean
meeting-
The
town
moratorium.
meeting-
Moratorium, yeah.
Moratorium is
Okay.
approved, saying, planning board, go ahead and do your work, and if it's gotta be ready by the
May.
by May, when does it have to be ready to be sent?
We'd have to have it ready to be sent to the selectmen, refer it to the selectmen in late February, early March.
Right, so we've got November, December, January, February, so we have 4 months to work on it.
Right. I'm not concerned about putting something together.
We can do that.
I think,
Don't you?
It's usually how we do things.
right,
Yeah.
4
right,
months,
Yeah.
right.
please.
I think the only,
John, you-
I'm for doing it in the annual town meeting.
Get it done.
Just doing, we've got 4 months, I think it's doable. Pushing it off, like Kathleen says, we don't gain that much, and.
It always creeps
you
up
know.
on us, and all of a sudden it's there.
What's that?
Fall meetings we don't have a lot of time in fall meetings. You have a month to get everything together, it seems like, after everything. It's rushed.
So, David, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm wondering, do we have at this point any sense of what sort of pushback there's going to be from the community?
I have none.
I've heard
You saw the
nothing.
number of people that were at our public hearing that we had on it 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago.
Right. So, you know, my sense is that in regard to extending it, I don't see any disadvantage to extending it, the moratorium, that is, to December, because it does give us an opportunity, if we should either fail or discover we need a major modification for some reason in the spring town meeting, to get it ready for a fall town meeting.
Okay, so you're suggesting that we request that it go to December, but that we do a work program to bring it in the spring?
Yeah, right, that would be my,
Yeah.
Last couple of words, to work program to what?
To bring it forward
I'm
in the
fine with
spring.
that.
Yeah, okay.
So ask for to say, we'd like this to be deferred, or that the
To
date.
extend it.
Be extended to December 31st, however, and say, however, our intention is still to bring it forward in the spring.
I think we definitely
I
should
think we
be
should say
aiming
that.
for the spring, seriously.
I'm the one that has to get and say this, so, yeah.
Yeah.
So Kathleen,
Listen up.
That's fine, I don't have a problem with that. I think that I can easily do
I
that.
think you can handle that.
Yeah.
Or that's in writing though, isn't it?
Yeah, it has to be in writing, so I would get everything
That's
ready,
interesting.
and we'd have to prep the moderator.
So let's take do we need to vote on that?
So, and I think the only reason
Thank you.
to do it is if it didn't pass at town meeting in the fall, in the spring, if the
Yeah.
bylaw.
Well, isn't it a
Me
law, we have no choice, it kinda has to be passed, doesn't it?
Has to be
Prolong
passed
it.
at some point.
If you wanna prolong it, this is what you can do, keep on pushing it till
So 6
December.
months, that's,
Not
it's,
even,
it's gonna be passed no matter what.
well, except if you don't pass it, then there is no specific way in which you can, direct. Somebody can come into any area of town. My only guess would be you probably could oppose somebody who wanted to do it in an RA district.
Why, the whole town's agricultural, why can't
Yeah.
you do it in your backyard?
Well,
Someone trying to stop, right?
The dispensary part of it, I'm thinking
Yeah.
of. Anyway, I don't think, I think there are going to be people who are going to sort of make some noises about cautioning us that we don't open ourselves up. In all honesty, if 95, exit 55 is not possible, my guess is nobody's going to be much interested in our community because
Place to put it.
it's not strategic.
We can still say that that's our area,
Yeah, we still can, exactly, yeah.
because we think it's the best place.
Mm-hmm, yeah, I mean, I
It's not
think,
gonna own it forever.
I think logically it is, as it
He
happens.
leases things out, so it doesn't really matter. There's multiple lease
Right.
offices there.
And interestingly,
motion?
our medical
So, yeah, I
stuff
think we
was
should-
there first anyway.
Okay, so I need a motion on this?
I move that we extend the date of the moratorium to December
31st.
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 Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Site plan review for, no, what else do we do?
Well, for the town, just for town meetings, so you will not be present, right?
Not be present.
So
Notice
Kathleen,
how she pointed at me when she said that? You will not be present.
All right.
Look
Well,
at-
that's
it's still-
all right.
She still has it pointed at me.
So, so what does that do?
But she was my friend.
I am.
Right,
So John will not be present. Kathleen will be giving the,
Right.
I'm not going into any big, what I've learned on these things is keep it short and simple. If people want to ask questions, they can. So-
she dresses to kill and,
So, no, but I'm just saying, so I don't think that we even need a
Listening.
presentation on this.
Just looking.
all you need to do, you do need to give the report that the public hearing was held on such and such a date, and there is a rationale in the warrant, which I'm passing out right now, and I think it should be pretty self-explanatory.
So,
And if you get stuck, I can get up and,
what would you like to do? Is that what you're saying?
no, I think you need to at least give the report.
Okay.
But what else we're bringing forward town meeting? I forgot all of a sudden.
Just, it's a solar, the,
Oh, the solar.
the solar correction,
That's,
right?
that's a,
Yeah,
This was a good one for you to miss.
yeah.
so what do you want us to, just to review this?
no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that,
The only thing we must make sure of is that our
Budget.
town moderator, bless her, doesn't sort of rush a fence on
she's not gonna
this.
be doing it.
Oh, she's not?
She can't be there.
Who's the moderator?
I think there has to be a motion from the floor to
Yes.
select another moderator.
Does, yeah.
Who's in the pool?
So far, I've heard Doug and
That's why I was thinking it'd be good at Doug.
Bud Kelly
good.
are the two names that I've
Who,
heard.
Okay, John Salter thought he did a fairly decent job,
Oh,
that his son.
sorry, no.
No,
His jokes were bad and he couldn't control a guinea pig.
So there you go. Okay.
All right, so this is good.
either Doug or Bud would be okay.
I do take exception to the cover of this item.
Aren't those all your
The Finance
photographs?
Committee Appropriations Booklet.
Aren't they, didn't they take all of your photographs? Are these yours?
Well, as a matter of fact, it's very interesting. My photographs, which are in the masthead of the website, have appeared, I think, in every, and that's fine, except no one has ever asked me whether it's fine.
I didn't even know that those were yours.
Oh, yeah, all of them.
I would have thought, like anybody else, that if they're on the website, they're allowed to be copied, like almost like a,
Public.
your
Public
seal.
domain.
Your town seal. Like, you know what I
Public-
mean? People copy the seals all the time on different
Oh,
communities.
they-
Well, that's true, but, I mean, as I say, it might have been nice to be asked, but
I think-
I've given that up.
I don't think they know it's yours. I don't think so.
No.
But I think they should ask.
Well, all of the photos that cycle on the website, they're all mine.
Oh, you did a very nice job.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
they are nice. So are we okay with this? Just want to review it? Not now.
No, I don't think you even need to. It was really more for your information.
All right, new business. well, we just talked about that, Middle Road. Weir access. So that's the photo that you sent.
I'm not.
Am I right?
Not everybody got that. Just you and Martha got
Oh,
the email.
okay.
Oh,
Because I didn't think it was appropriate to send the whole board.
Okay. Well,
Explain what we're talking about.
could you explain? You got a memo from a
All
friend?
right.
Well,
Oh, all right.
can
So
I get back to this quickly?
Sure.
This document? I do take exception to the fact that the Finance Committee has absolutely no opinion of value in relation to zoning, and therefore it should not appear here.
where do you see?
I
the-
see, after our issues, Article 8, it says, will of the town, Finance Committee recommendation. And it says the same thing after Article 9. And I'm sorry, it does not say that we,
It doesn't,
recommend
it
it.
doesn't say who recommended it.
it doesn't say
Yeah.
that we
It
recommend it.
didn't say the planning board
And
recommended it.
so, and that's why I take exception to the cover of this document, and I am going to speak to the Finance Committee. I'm tired of this. This is so they are an appointed committee, we are an elected board. And they have absolutely no,
But this is not the warrant, though. This is not what's passed out. This is just a
This is-
That's,
extra.
People
this is
are
simply
going-
their support
Yeah.
documentation.
Yeah.
about- They've looked at this and they've said, we like it.
Yeah, that's all.
yeah, but, this is, it is sort of regarded by people as the warrant.
Where's Walker? He asked his question too early. Where's Walker?
Well, anyway.
Anytime something like this comes up, I always like to get town council's opinion about stuff like that.
Well,
Whether or not
I
this is
can-
a
I can-
legal issue, or
yes.
is it a,
It's a
cultural
it's a
issue.
form issue, and I can tell you, not speaking on Jenny's behalf, because I cannot and would not, but I can tell you that I know that she feels that we need to radically revise the way in which we run our town meetings.
she may be right,
I want to go back to planning board business.
yeah.
Well, this is, to me, is planning board business,
Okay.
because I would feel that since we are the people who are putting these items on the agenda through our recommendation to the selectmen, it should be on there that we approve this.
I think it is a lack of communication and a misunderstanding. I think that's all it is, but you're right.
Yeah,
I think that they just didn't realize.
Well,
And they looked at it from a finance
What
committee.
does it say on the warrant?
well, I
Finance.
think this is what's going to be handed
this
out.
is
the
what's
warrant.
on the
This-
warrant.
This is the warrant?
Yeah, it's
Oh.
got the rationale for each of the
Oh, well, then David
articles
is
behind it.
absolutely right.
I thought this was in
It-
addition to the
On
warrant.
these items, it should say planning board recommends approval,
Yeah,
not,
How can this be what's being handed out, and why is it like a finance document then?
well,
Well, the
that's,
special town meeting, I can't, I didn't put it
No,
together.
no.
David,
I
if
can't
that's the
answer
case,
that.
I agree with
but-
you. It shouldn't be titled
yeah,
for
I
that,
agree.
but, if
And
that's the
maybe,
case.
maybe I should, I'm not gonna be there, but I
It says
can,
draft, can't they change it?
I can send an email to Tracy and just say, why didn't it have our approval on it?
I mean, the planning board does make a report, and it's always an oral report in which it is stated that the planning board
At the,
recommends this
at
at the
the,
town
at the
meeting.
town meeting. Okay,
but once again, I come back to the fact that the opinion of the Finance Committee in relation to our recommendations is not germane to the articles and should not appear.
I understand if this is the document that's being handed out and it's not an additional
Yeah.
supplemental document, I agree with you. However, are we confident that this is what's being handed
Yeah.
out? Because why would it even be titled Finance Committee Report then? I mean, this isn't the only report that's going out. This is a question that Martha can't answer. This is a question
Okay.
that Tracy has to answer.
I am gonna talk to Tracy tomorrow.
Yeah,
All right.
Tracy.
Okay.
Can we put that to bed? I will do that. What else do we have? All right, so you want to talk about the Weir access, please?
I received an email from Bonnie McDonald. Her husband was here when we were doing the we proposed a rezoning for the business light industrial district. He's the gentleman that lives on Middle Road, the residential property.
Did they own fowls?
Yes.
Yes.
She contacted me. I don't know her that well, but we know each other, and she knows that I'm on the planning board. So she wanted to know what was going on next to her property. She heard that the property owner was putting a road in to access off of Middle Road through the wetlands. So I said, I don't know anything about it. I'm gonna look into it. I drove down there, and there was actually, you could see where there was clearing up to the wetlands. And I'm assuming the Conservation Commission would be aware of this, so that's why I want to talk to John.
I'm not, totally not.
So
no.
what-
Doug may be.
So from what I had gathered talking to, I don't know how much of this detail I really want to get into.
No, it's okay.
So what I got from making phone calls around town hall is that this is in relation to the issue with maintaining the culvert out there, with the beaver issues and all that. I don't know if this is. I was kind of hoping that Martha
All right,
might have more clarification
so
on
Sounds
it.
like none of us know much about this.
And that it's a town. It's a town. Actually, it's the town that has been involved, and the town has actually been doing the work, and it's through wetlands. So you.
David says he knows something about it.
Alright.
I know a fair amount about this. This goes back a long time, and I'm not going to, at this point, bore you with the history. But essentially, this is the outcome of a vote that the town made in May at the special town meeting, which always precedes
Yeah.
the town meeting. And there was an item in that special town meeting which I challenged for $40,000 to install
Remember that?
a box culvert on private property, okay, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, this was the recommendation of the consultant that was hired. Yes, I remember
This
this.
is a-
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Now, this is,
And-
so,
Yep.
this is probably, because it's long but essentially what it is that there was about, almost 20 years ago, a flood which inundated the property which lies downstream from where this box culvert is going to go in, okay?
You mean the
Because-
residential property? The residential property?
No, well, okay, there is residential property on the property, but it's a commercial property, actually.
That's being considered, that we're talking about.
Yeah,
This is a
that
commercial-
fronts onto Route 1.
Right.
Okay, and this is going to be characterized quite differently by other people. But what I know, based on the work that I've done to investigate this, is essentially this got to be a very contentious issue where the property owner felt that it was the town employees who had caused the flood by entering onto property and in fact removing a dam.
No, it was an existing weir.
Well, okay. The interesting thing is
That failed.
the pond that's there is an old ice pond. And there was not an existing weir. What there was the foundation of a very old wooden weir commonly installed in ice ponds, okay? On
That's
which-
what I heard, a weir that was damaged.
Yeah,
Okay.
on which a beaver had built. Okay, now, just to confound the issue, the owner whose property was inundated did not at that time own the pond. Somebody else did. He subsequently bought the pond and the property, very small amount of property surrounding it. He then proceeded to threaten suit based on the contention that the town had caused the flood. And essentially what has happened over the years is this has sort of gone on and gone on. And as I understand it, I may be wrong about this, but essentially the town agreed to settle the claim by doing something about it on the basis that if the blockage continued because the beavers came back, this was undermining Middle Road, and we in fact had to do a whole lot of things to borrow pumps from Mass DEP and all kinds of stuff, okay? They then went to, what's his name? David Vine, who's an engineer, who came up with a plan to install a 20-something foot long box culvert.
Like
Okay.
in the pond?
Well, in the exit from the pond.
It's actually like if you looked at it, it would almost be like a crossing over the street.
Well, it
A
is.
stream, the stream.
Yeah.
A crossing?
Yeah.
It will act like almost like a bridge.
In that location where you took the photo?
Yes.
Right, okay, and I have aerial photos going back into the 90s in my files, okay? There is, it's very questionable as to whether the original structure was right on the property line or in fact in the piece of property owned by the person who had the flood, okay, or whether it was not, all right? Currently, the situation there has been that the beaver has come and gone again. There are very stringent rules in the state about what you can do to remove beavers, all right? And this is, the contention here is that if we don't do this, we will be subjected to flooding again and that Middle Road will be undermined. Now, there has never been a hydrology study of this area. There was a suggestion that maybe MVPC might be able to find some funds to do that. Because what's happening is it's the upstream floodplain that's creating this problem and some
Now, is the
undersized.
upstream floodplain on the other side of Route 1, or is it on
No,
this side?
it's on the west side of Middle Road. Think of Route 1 here, Middle Road is here, the pond is there, and all of this stuff on the west side of Route 1 is contributing.
Highfield.
Yes, okay, plus the fact that the other branch that flows into this pond actually goes down behind where the container
Wraps
storage
around the site,
place, okay? So you've
It's all
got.
wet in there. It's all
Yeah,
wet.
and you've got two major watercourses which frankly now have water in them 12 months of the year. They were probably seasonal streams to some degree before, okay, that, who knows, 30, 40, 50 years ago. What is at issue here, as I see it, are two things. One is the fact that the town apparently has received easements from the not the homeowner, but the property owner who owns both the property on Route 1 and also the pond, to have the town access this culvert so it can be maintained.
Well, constructed and maintained.
Constructed and maintained. It is being accessed currently through that
The
property
boatyard.
owner's
The
land.
boatyard.
The boatyard.
Yeah, okay, the boatyard, which incidentally is another whole story too, that was
Don't-
developed
don't-
without permitting.
You don't need to go there.
Right. So you've got a situation where we had an appropriation of monies that was put into a special town meeting, which is normally used for essentially the transfer of monies interdepartmentally.
Right.
And I raised this with actually
Bob
the
Connors.
capital,
Bob Connors responded.
yeah,
to
Bob Connors, the capital, what is he, the
Planning.
chairman of the
Planning.
capital, yes.
Capital planning.
The planning committee. And he said, well, this was essentially recommended, by the engineer, it was, okay. And I simply said, to him at the time, that there were other issues that he knew about and I knew about, and that shouldn't have been an item in the special town meeting. It should have been a regular item in the regular town meeting. So
So were you against the appropriation or just simply where it was located?
I was against the appropriation methodology. I was also against, not against, but I questioned and I think it did actually come to the Conservation Commission at some point, I questioned the whole plan. Because in all honesty, to install a 22-foot box culvert, I think it's 22 feet, but it's 20-something feet, box culvert, flowing west to east, okay, meaning it's essentially going to channelize the flow from the pond into the property below. That's not necessary. All you need there is to reconfigure that water course.
So I guess the question is, what is the opinion, we don't know what the Conservation Commission thinks about this, do we know what?
I
what
can
the
only
narrative-
assume that the Conservation Commission had no issues. I don't remember us dealing with that recently.
No,
And
it
I
would have
can't
been.
remember why
Can I get back to the
we
concern I
didn't.
brought it up?
But we
I think we
did,
should go
I
back to
remember
the
we took a
concern of-
site visit there
concern is-
probably a year or maybe
Yes.
over a year ago,
Yep.
just looking at the
haven't said
overall
that yet, though.
situation.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, the design had not been done, to my
Okay.
recollection.
So
So-
you've never seen a design?
I've never seen the design, which, you know, it doesn't mean it was held secret anywhere.
no.
I just haven't chased it down, which I think I may be well.
So I'm personally willing to leave a discussion about the appropriateness of the weir, of the box culvert to the Concom, because that's what, I assume that the Concom is in the process of building this thing. Am I right? Who else is doing it
From what I was told, it's supposed to be completed within the next week.
next week? So the Concom or DPW or somebody is building this.
I know the thing
Contractors went out to
Ready to
bid.
go out
Contract.
for bid.
I mean, I can't comment on it. It's way past when we would come in. I think the concern of the property owners out there is, and what I gathered from her note to you, was she thought that now all of a sudden there'd be access from
Trying to
his
remember if I saw
property
it on the agenda.
on Route 1 out to Middle Road.
Don't remember it.
And so I don't know, do we know the constructability of the box culvert? What does that look like?
From when talking to Doug, it is something that could act as a bridge, to drive through.
And how wide is it?
Wide enough for the
For a car?
for the DPW to get in there and maintain it.
Well, the way it's being installed, if the stream flows like this, okay, here's the pond, okay, and the stream's flowing out of the pond like that. The box culvert, as I understand it from the plans that I have seen and have copies of, because I was sent them, actually runs down the length.
It's a base. All it is a a box,
It's a
and the
box
stream's
that
going
that
through.
water goes through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
It's a
what
channel.
it is.
It's a
Right,
channel.
so if you had if it can bear weight, as I'm sure it can,
And it can. That's why they're installing it, because they need to access the other side of the stream in order to maintain whatever the issues are over there. That's why. What's from what I've told.
except the McDonald's property comes right up to this thing.
Well, that was her concern, is how come I wasn't notified? How come there wasn't a public hearing? And I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if it was a town thing at the time. And I said, well, I'm surprised. I'm not sure. In order to trigger site plan review, it would have to have altered the earth. What is
Okay.
it, 5,000 square feet? Maybe it's under the threshold. But the
She
concern
dug it
that I'm
away.
bringing up is
You see, Doug,
this
I'm going to give
is
Tracy
going to give
a call. I don't know if
access
Tracy knows
to Middle Road, and that was something
Well, it
that
did go out to
I
bid,
thought that we were
so-
concerned
that. So
about.
she'd know
She
about it.
must have.
All right.
In
Well, we're
detail,
gonna
perhaps
talk
not,
to
but-
Doug and Tracy in the morning and just find out about these kinds of questions and as best we can.
In
I'm
my,
understand your
astonished
concern.
that this was the McDonald's who live in the house
you-
which
Mr.
abuts
Yeah, it's a
this.
nice, they
Yeah.
have a swimming pool
Right,
and all
now,
that.
these people were the people who permitted the town to use their property to pump massive quantities of water from the west side of Middle Road. Okay, what we did.
we don't need to get into the details. I don't think the
No,
public needs
but
to hear the
let me
details of it.
explain why they might be distressed, okay?
I think they were distressed because they've been working with the town over
Yeah.
these
And all
issues,
of a
and they
sudden,
weren't notified.
They weren't notified.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's their measure of distress. So let's find out why they weren't notified.
But that is not,
And I will do that.
and that is not a planning board issue. That wasn't our responsibility.
not.
We were not
No,
involved
I
in it.
understand, but it's enough because we've got a constituent who's contacted us and we want to get back to it.
But I wanted to bring it up because I want to talk about how we can prevent in the future access off of Middle Road. That's like a residential type street. Did not want to
Well,
think.
you can't, I don't think there's possible access if we had, and I would like us, please, to make efforts in the future so that we can live pull down mapping and aerials from our MyMap program, because if we were able to do that tonight, I could show you,
Yeah, we just found out about this yesterday.
well, oh, no, but I could, okay, I could pull down because I know where it is.
But why,
all this
why,
data.
what, the point of the whole bringing it up was more not so much about the culvert, it was more about there being access
No, what
from the
I'm trying-
backside of the Business Light Industrial Street
Yeah.
to Middle Street. And we
What
were, when
I'm
we
trying to
rezoned, we were trying to look at preventing that.
What I'm trying to explain is that the pond occupies the major portion of the piece of property that has frontage on Middle Road.
Right.
Okay.
I was just there,
And-
and I don't know how you get frontage on Middle Road, but it might be, I don't know.
It doesn't, you
See,
would
'cause you
have
don't-
to, you'd
'cause we
have
don't
to
know
have
what
an
the plan is.
amphibious vehicle.
We don't know how much this box culvert takes up. We see the road coming in from the guy's property. We don't know the design of it. We have no
Yeah,
idea.
well, I'll send you the materials, because I got,
You have the designs?
yeah,
Yeah, you got everything.
Well, I would like to see them.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, is that all right? There's nothing we have to do about that, except for we have to talk to Tracy, and you're gonna talk to Doug in the
I
morning.
want to talk to Doug in the morning.
The only thing else on new business, and just quickly, is to let everybody know that on the 6th, Jerry Ring is scheduled to be here. And the only reason I bring it up now is that now that we have the public hearing, I'd like to give him as close to a time certain, but maybe it's 8:15 or something like that, do you think? Think we'll have an hour for the public hearing now?
Potentially, yeah.
So let me indicate to him at 8:15, 8 o'clock. He should be here
Okay.
by 8 o'clock.
Jerry Rain, I'm
From
sorry.
Caldwell Farms,
Oh, yes.
the chairman of the board.
Yeah.
And in terms of what we want, just is that we had information from our town attorney. We still are interested in pursuing it, and we'd like to know his concerns, something like that. And so I think that's the way we'll handle it. Any other new business people want to bring up? No? I did want to just make a comment quickly about the note that Martha sent. In it, she lists a number of things that we might want to be taking a look at in terms of a work program over the 6 to 8 months. And, obviously, medical marijuana, bringing that forward in the spring, site plan review in the spring. And where are we with the site plan review right now? You guys met?
Mm-hmm.
You got something that we can take a look at soon?
Not yet.
How soon? How
2
soon?
more weeks?
2 more weeks? You
Well,
know, it'd be
probably not the
nice-
6th meeting, probably the meeting
One
after
after
that. The meeting after the 6th.
Yeah, because the
or whatever
6th
that is.
might
Right,
not
it's
be
too
a good
much.
thing. So what's the next, 6th, 21st? 6th?
Of what month you?
November.
November.
Well, right now, Martha's incorporating all our revisions from reading all your comments. And
Okay.
then when we get that back, we're gonna have one more review of the committee meeting,
How large is this document?
4 pages,
4 pages?
right?
Well, if we could get it by, 2 weeks before the next meeting, the 21st meeting of November.
Well, the way,
Right.
what we agreed to at our last meeting, which was yesterday, was that the three of us would meet again on the 5th, review a draft,
5th
of November. Right. And then review a draft. If we have comments, then get those incorporated, and then it would come out to the rest of the board
Okay,
members
so we-
before the 20th.
Yeah, for the 20th.
Right.
Okay, so, but we don't want to get it, give
The
us.
day before,
Yeah,
right.
like a week before. Is that okay?
Yeah, that should be
All right.
done.
Wait, so,
You're going to meet,
just to make sure it's clear, we were going to meet in November 4th, November whatever, the first week in November 5th, to go over the comments that Martha's incorporating in the document. And then the subcommittee was gonna go through it one more time, make recommendations of maybe any kind of proposed changes from reading other communities, right? and then submit it to the board for review.
Right.
So we probably won't have it ready for the board for the 21st meeting.
No, I don't see
Not with
that.
any time.
Do you see that happening, Martha?
Uh,
Because we'd still have to incorporate any new comments.
Right.
Because we're not gonna be meeting until November 5th.
Right. I think it would depend on how much more we wanted to incorporate,
Well, the problem is,
so.
well, you know how these things go. I mean, it'd be great if we could have it before, like by the, 15th of November. No? No, can't do that?
It's possible.
Well, wait a minute, you're gonna meet the day before our next meeting to review what you've got so far, right?
Right.
And is that that's a now so it's a new document?
It'll be a revision, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, well, it would strike me that it's, at that point, it might be possible to send that out to the rest of us so we can at least look at it to know, because,
So all you're gonna get then, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Is, what you're gonna get is the 5 board members that made comments on their site plan review. We went through each of the comments.
Right.
And we are pulling them into the document. And
Right.
we have not looked
Oh,
at,
so you
at
have-
any other communities yet
but
to
hold
say
on.
whether or not we wanna like
Oh,
pull in
I didn't
anything
know that.
else.
So
Well, what's
you've made no judgments as to whether or not David was right, or I was right,
No, we
or
did.
George
We
was
did.
right.
Yeah,
we
they
did.
did.
Yeah, but if as
You wanna
far
put in the
as,
right ones.
Well, I think that's fine.
but as far as going and cleaning up and looking into the other communities.
Well,
and
wait,
pulling
wait,
anything
wait,
we haven't.
where did you start?
With your comments.
No,
took
but
all
our
of your
comments on what?
Our existing bylaw.
That we sent in.
On
We
the
went- we came-
existing, on the
Bylaw.
existing
Remember,
bylaw, but,
But
yeah.
see, those comments, at least mine, a lot of them were based on what I took from other bylaws.
Right.
So I have no problem with, if you've taken, you've already incorporated a lot of the thoughts that we may have had that came from other bylaws.
Look that way, don't look at me. I am not the lead on this one. This was not my baby.
I mean, that's what I did. And, so I don't have, and who else David commented?
yeah.
Did you comment?
John
at all?
did,
You
everybody did.
Everybody
Yeah,
wrote it.
everybody did, I think, yeah. No, my point being, I think in the past, and this is no criticism of anyone, except perhaps me, in the past, we have tended to sort of go off and look at all kinds of other stuff when we have a good sort of structural frame, et cetera. And I think what we do is we tend to lose time, and we tend to get it lost
See,
in the weeds.
I completely disagree with you. The way it's supposed to work is the subcommittee is supposed to go back and say, okay, this is what we're recommending to the board. You review it and tell me if you agree with this or not, and then we'll go. But I'm not going through multiple revisions of a committee that I didn't want to be on in the first place.
No, I'm
okay?
not
I
talking
am
about
not stretching this out.
Multiple revisions.
I'm not going through that, and
No, wait a
I'm
minute.
not.
But David's trying to shorten it.
I'm
Yeah,
not.
okay. Have you ever been through a meeting trying to get something in agreement when you have 6 people sitting here going through trying to make comments on it? It's
Well,
not a fun
you're
experience.
gonna have it anyway. You're gonna have it anyway. It's a question of whether or not you've gone out and looked at Ipswich and everything else. But we've all seen the Ipswich reports. I've seen the Ipswich reports. I've seen Ipswich and West Newbury, and I've seen,
How come you're not on the subcommittee?
because you volunteered.
Well, all I'm thinking is that you might well get to the point by the 21st of November where you feel you have a document that you want to present to the rest of the board, okay? But at that point, that's the very point at which the whole process could come unglued. Simply because we might say, whoa, what is
You're
this?
either on the subcommittee or you're not on the subcommittee, okay? So if you're gonna have that much control, you take my place.
No, no,
I don't wanna be
by the
involved
way-
in it.
By the way.
I don't.
No.
David,
Right.
Kathleen
Yes,
is right.
I will, right.
Okay? So,
Fine, do it the way you would
we
like.
would like to get it sooner rather than later, but do the best you can. Okay?
Yep.
Sorry. You're right. Okay, site plan review, maybe November. Well, we have enough time because we have to have it in the can by March, right, early March. It's just that you have the holidays, so not much really happens over December anyway, and Thanksgiving, so.
Well, my
uh,
one quick additional comment would be, I think site plan review is something that we might want to do the kind of thing that John has been very much pushing for, and that is to have it reviewed outside of the board. Because one of the problems about site plan review is the issues it raises with,
So
Developers.
this is more of a schedule issue then. So if this is a schedule thing, right now, Martha, you wanted 3 weeks to mark up the document. Is there any way for you to move that forward? So you can complete it within less time? So do you see what I'm saying? Right now, we're 3 weeks out for her to
Right.
get the document. We can't do anything until then.
Right, so that would be good if you could do that, Martha, and only because I agree that I think a peer review or a developer review,
yeah, well.
you know, makes
Yeah.
some sense. Let me just step back. When you incorporated site plan 5 years ago,
Yeah.
did you get peer review?
No, we didn't, because at that point, we frankly needed to move pretty quickly we felt to get something in place.
Okay,
And we peer reviewed it only in the sense that we did indeed look at other communities.
okay. So to the extent possible, Martha, if you're able to get this done sooner, that would be good. Okay? Okay, so then you have flood hazard minor amendments will be needed to reflect the new map panel numbers. That's basically from the stuff that's going on with FEMA, right?
Right.
I am surprised that there hasn't been more of an outrage to the new firm maps here. There certainly appears to have been. There was an article in the Globe today about Marshfield and Duxbury. And they said Hingham had 2,200 homes that were now going to be required to have flood insurance that weren't, last year. So the South Shore seems to have gotten hit a little harder than we have, but
We were hit hard. John, weren't we hit hard in this new revision?
We're
We're very
pretty
hard.
hard, but I would tend to agree that the South Shore is perceived generally by the cognoscenti as being more severely damaged by storm than we are.
And my problem is,
vulnerable, maybe.
I've been trying to look at these new the flood maps, and they're so difficult to read.
I just
don't-
went in this week and read it last week.
Yeah, I mean, you're okay, you're in better shape than a lot of people, and not many people down where you are, but there are a number of properties on the Parker River, there's loads of properties
yeah.
on Plum Island, and you've got some more, salt marsh people who are now
along
being
with the,
particularly, affected.
Turnpike.
So, I'm just surprised that there hasn't been as much of an outrage as there has been in other places.
I think it's a lack of understanding.
I think, yeah, but this community has always dealt with this, so I'm surprised that they haven't, been
I
outraged.
think a
by it.
few people have started to realize how serious this is, but hasn't coalesced into a movement yet.
Well,
I think when it does, oh boy.
Doug was saying, though, when he looked at the revisions, that they were very logical, the people that were in the floodplains. Like, for understanding, like, you would expect that if Pine Island floods and your house is down around that elevation, that you would be in the floodplains. It's one of those type of situations.
I don't know.
Like my neighbors, when we have a full moon nor'easter, we have whitecaps in their yard. It kind of makes sense that they're in the floodplain.
I think the other thing which is instrumental here is it depends on the calendar renewal of your insurance.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are gonna find out two things. One is that they are suddenly in the velocity zone or a new zone, and two, that their flood insurance has just increased anywhere from 100 to 400%.
Right. But in your note to us, Martha, you indicate that the minor amendments will be needed, and is that we simply take the data and incorporate it, or do we wait to see if they start to make changes? I mean, have a lot of pressure coming from Coakley, Tierney, and all of the congressional caucus from Massachusetts trying to have a change in the implementation of that act. And I suppose we should just keep on top of that and see what happens.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that that's really going to affect the implementation or the adoption of the flood maps itself. I think that's more an
It
insurance
might be
issue,
the
right?
insurance issue.
So I think we should proceed. In the letter of, what do they call it, final determination or something, is supposed to be issued in January, and then the maps will be effective 6 months after that. So I think by January, we'll certainly know if we need to
Yeah,
go for the
what happens
spring.
to you? And
'Cause
you-
she's
but
high.
What about the property behind you?
I don't know if they're in it or not. It should be, but I don't know if it is.
Because
I-
they have white caps, don't they?
Well, they stop at, that fence line of Towns property, in Brad
Oh,
Towns. It
yeah.
stops right, the white caps come to there. So, it's not that far, but that's where they
Gets your
stop.
attention.
Yeah, oh, it does, that gets my attention. She's done something to a property in back of me, cause when we first moved in there, her
Right,
house
Kim.
always looked like it was sitting in the middle of an island, with so much water around it, and now it doesn't happen anymore, so I don't know what she's
So she's put
done.
berms up or something like that?
She's done a lot, she's put a lot of work
Do you
in
know what your elevation is, though, legally?
No, I have no clue.
Do you
Well,
know yours,
because if
Kathleen?
it's 13
mine
feet or
is,
less, you're in
24
it.
in my driveway,
Yeah, so is mine.
so I'm not in it, you're not in it.
No,
And
not in
the,
it.
the salt marsh virtually everywhere is about 5, elevation 5.
Yeah,
Roughly.
right,
You're that high.
Yeah.
So if you're 8 feet above the marsh, that's,
I just,
I thought
right.
it would be higher than you.
yeah.
I
It is
just looked it
13
up.
feet, right?
By my map.
Yeah. The irony is, you know what's
off their map.
in
Oh, I
the
didn't look at their
zone,
map.
I took their
which
flood.
confuses the hell out of me? The sewage treatment plant in Newburyport.
yeah. How about the Coast Guard station?
Oh, it's going. It's
Well,
going.
but
Going,
they've
yeah.
just spent how many millions of dollars?
Yeah.
Well, I know.
on it? It's right across the street
Well-
from my new house.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just going over Martha's recommendations for us. Zoning's
Yes.
district boundaries, at least the commercial highway A
Yes.
and A1. I think we agree with that, right? That we need to take a look at those? Someone, written descriptions are vague and have not been accurately, but I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about. Do you, sometime in January, do you wanna,
Yeah, December, January.
December,
I think.
January, maybe start to take a
Yeah.
look at that? And then here's an interesting one. Did everybody read this note? The Route 1A overlay district to allow retail businesses that are compatible with the character of 1A, our segment of the scenic byway, such as antique shops and art galleries.
What are you reading?
The memo that
The email that I sent
Martha
out.
sent to
An
you,
email, yeah.
and to me,
I didn't see
and to
that.
Linda.
I didn't see that.
Go to the whole planning board.
Says, hi, everyone.
Last week with the agenda and the minutes,
Hi, everyone. And then David responded to
I'll bet I
it
printed
with
the
some other
agenda.
thoughts.
and not the email.
So that's a new thought, and I think it's an interesting one, especially if you look at that new property, or the old property that was rehabbed by the folks who came in to see us. They wanted to put a restaurant at the.
Right, well, that's kind of what raised the
They-
question, because they
different
haven't-
group, though.
yeah,
What
different-
happened?
Different people.
It's
Different
yeah,
people, but they've done a nice job.
Yeah, but what happened? Do we know? Sam came back from his whatever? Did he make a decision?
I don't know, I actually haven't talked to him about it.
Oh, yeah, 'cause it's an antique business there now, I saw
Right.
that.
Right.
I think
Well-
that it fits the character of the scenic byway, though, the
I do
art
too.
galleries and the antique shops. I think that it's very appropriate for that stretch of road.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I think if it's something that fulfills, that is in line with the scenic byway.
And the
I don't
only-
want to see a fast food Dunkin' Donuts there, but I think that galleries
But
and
I
art galleries.
wonder
We've
if-
always had that, too. That's not new. is it?
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
yeah,
Antique
Joe was
shops,
telling me
whatever.
that there was a barn near us where they used to have plays and stuff like that. So I think it's a great idea. I just, do you think the town would go along having limits like antiques and what have you, and not really open it up too much? Because I think you don't want to open it up too much.
Well, I'm gonna say, I can tell you what it is. It's a third rail of a kind. It's like design.
Right.
In other words, if you have a design review committee, that's where usually all the blood gets let in communities. And this kind of thing, I think, would potentially be a similar area. Though I tend to agree that the way this came up, and I take full, blame, okay, for this, if there is blame to be shared. I picked up the fact that these people were coming in front of the selectmen, in the barn, for a business license. Well, now that's a residential agricultural area, and you can't have business there. unless you have either a variance or a special permit. And what happens is we have a little kind of glitch which the town needs to fix, and that is someone comes to Leslie and they ask for either a business license, okay, or a business, what's it called, business
Certificate.
certificate, which is what I have, which is issued to people who have
Home
a home, right, a home business, okay? Or you have a license, okay? Well, no one at this moment seems to review where they fall. And so what we need to do, not we, but what the town needs to do, is basically to attach to the form a line which basically has the building inspector to sign off on their application that it is either a home occupation or it's a business. In this case, this one, in my estimation anyway, is a business, clearly, because ironically, and the reason why I even got on this was because the very day I got the agenda from the selectmen's meeting, I got in the mail a coupon ad from In the Barn for a
Come.
20% discount.
Come to the opening.
Yeah, and so that drew my attention to the fact that they were running a business which is open to the public, which means anyone who drives by. That means they have parking issues, but they have parking, to satisfy.
Right, and as soon as you have the parking requirements, it puts a whole different burden
right.
of proof on the project.
And in the past, I'm afraid, have had a situation where there hasn't been the sort of checks and balances, and I think it's only fair that we don't create a nasty precedent whereby someone can say, well, Freddie got it, so why shouldn't I?
Yeah.
I think that you're right, though. I think it's just more of changing the procedure in the future.
Yeah,
And can that be suggested by, how is that going to be suggested?
I don't know. I haven't
the
really
procedure
digested
thing
this.
I think, can be done simply by Tracy and Leslie and the building inspector working together. With Martha perhaps in a consultant role if there's something that needs to come to the planning board
So
for
what does the
review.
end look like? What does it look like if the procedures are changed? How,
Well, what it would do is, initially, it would simply mean if I came in here and said, gee, I want to start I have this business that I want to start on my lot, then I would get a form and I would have to fill it out, and among other things, in the process, there would be a check on what zone I was in, right? Okay, and that.
and if the zone was on Route 1A, which is agricultural, residential,
Yeah.
what does the building commissioner say?
What he says is, if it's a home occupation, if you're an accountant, and you might have one of two people coming to your
okay.
house by appointment, probably he's gonna say yes, but
But let's say it's this use that just went down there, that clearly.
then what he
Parking.
says, in my estimation, is if he goes by the zoning, he says you have to either get a variance or you have to apply for a special permit granted by the selectmen, which is right in our zoning bylaws. And that means, and I can hear Joe and others saying this, that means additional expense. It's true. You're gonna have to have an ad, you're gonna have to have a public hearing, and you're gonna have to satisfy rules and regulations which might apply to your business. But you would have to do that in any other community. Particularly if you're running a business which is
I
open
like
to the
the
public.
idea of having galleries, art galleries, and antiques on 1A. I don't think they should be prohibited.
I agree, and so the question is, what is the best way to ensure that the art galleries and the antique shops, et cetera, how does Essex deal with it?
Essex doesn't have any zoning.
They don't have any
That's
zoning.
how
Have
they
no
do-
zoning?
No,
Yeah,
Yep, they have I think they have a general zone,
They
and
have
that's
one
it.
zone.
Martha
have
made,
one zone for the whole
Martha made a
town.
good suggestion, though, having an overlay district just for
Yes.
that area. And
Yeah.
just allowing those,
Yeah, I
those
think it's good.
activities.
How you could structure the overlay district, I think, is interesting. Do you in fact make it lot by lot, so that everybody who would qualify would have to have frontage? And would, for example, are you going to say that they have to have sufficient frontage? Because commercial frontage is 200 feet.
Yeah. I mean,
No,
it's a whole different set of requirements. But for those kinds of uses, I mean, let's face it, the requirement for an antique shop versus a McDonald's is quite different.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, you just, I mean, it takes some thought to just put a set of procedures together that is in accordance with what we'd like to see, as opposed to having anything happen.
Well, we have a sort of model in that funny little residential business limited district, which is Byfield Auto, which is one single lot just down the street from me, okay, was essentially a way of permitting a certain kind of activity, namely
That's true.
anything to do with automobile repair or body shop on a certain lot. So you could sort of extend that principle to, you know,
Yeah.
to essentially an overlay district and say, these kinds of activities
Well,
with
I
these
think it's a
limitations.
worthwhile endeavor to talk it through and see if we could bring something forward for consideration. So I think that's possible.
Because right now, all the stuff that's on there is permitted by agricultural, right, Martha?
Right, and so I
Or
think that
your
we.
neighbors who do this are either selling straw or they're running a horse operation or
Right,
what,
right, they're-
or they're Matt Kazaki or
Although there is a
whatever.
place right across from Tender Crop that has this sign on about a hair salon or something, flipping in or flipping out.
that's, I think, a business. I don't think that's a hair salon.
It's a
Oh,
business, you
Yeah, it's
just close the sign
What
or
is it?
something?
Yeah,
Close
that's,
design?
yeah, I think it's, yeah.
But you don't, you have no
Right.
clue what it is.
Right,
But they've got adequate parking in the back, because they've got.
Well, they've
lot-
got-
I don't
yes.
know.
actually two houses.
I know.
And I actually have never seen traffic going in and out of
There
there.
are, yeah.
of any
Anyway,
sort.
So,
Right.
what's the board's thought? We look at this in December, January, and?
Yeah.
and- Okay.
See if we,
I think it
in
makes
that
sense.
case, Kathleen can find examples in other towns.
That's right. So Kathleen is on her way out. There are two other
Oh,
things.
subcommittee? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, okay.
Yes, yes. And
Appreciate objection.
maybe we can talk about this at the next time, but I think the master plan is worthwhile discussing. It's something that we haven't done.
Nobody ever looks at the master plan once it's finished.
Well, you know, that,
Very damn few communities treat it with the kind of respect it deserves.
but you know, you're correct. But you know,
We should.
when I came on the board 2 years ago, I read the master plan, and then I realized during the first year I was on the board that a lot of the recommendations in the master plan were being carried out.
More by default than by,
Well, whatever,
yeah.
but they
Well,
were being done.
It happened.
They were being done.
Being the only person at this table who, with the exception of Martha,
Oh,
but
no, I
being
was
the only
there.
board member,
I was there.
you were there,
I was.
but you weren't there during the blood and thunder days, were you?
I had to listen and review part of it, so I'm gonna take it.
Anyway, the point is that we did knowingly write a master plan that we knew should be looked at in 5 to 7 years' time.
Okay. So here's the most valid part of it. It was written in '03, '04.
Yeah, a little earlier than
And,
that.
and one
in
of the
some
great
part.
reasons why we want to relook at it is because it was written during a whole different economy. And so it makes sense to revisit it, and I think it's something that makes sense. The question is, I'd be happy to appoint or think about a subcommittee to start to look at what, you know, the salient issues that need to be addressed.
Yeah,
And
it
if
was
we can
leaving.
come up with some things, then we really want to take a look at it.
Mhm.
And that subcommittee
Not me. My seat's up
The
in,
two
in
people.
May, so.
I think there should be a new rule. If you have this passion for something like this, that you should automatically be on the
She
subcommittee.
said, if you have a passion for something, you ought to be on the subcommittee.
There you go, boys.
Like your stormwater and,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Right.
Like my site plan review.
your site plan review, you have the passion for it.
We got that by default.
Well, we can discuss this at the
Arm
next meeting,
twisting.
but I'd be happy to do that. I would.
So
I
would
think
I,
that makes sense.
actually, I
And on the
think, yeah.
PIOD, you know, Martha and I had a meeting with David Mountain, and Doug and Sam, about 2 months ago, after we had said that we would do something. And, it was almost the exact same week that the new flood levels came out. And so I think the conclusion that we came with at that meeting was that we wouldn't do anything drastic right now, but we would try to rewrite the administrative procedures in such a way as that, and do major promotion of the building requirements that were being now incorporated, and that to really promote it on Plum Island, to have meetings and try to, get that information out, rather than to rewrite everything at this point in time. Now that has not gone anywhere, and I think that it's mostly our fault, because we just haven't moved on it. And David was in and out on a couple of things. But that's where the recommendation from those two came from, that let's not go anything revolutionary right now, let's just evolve with something right now and tighten up what we've got and move forward. Now, would you, since I blabbered on, you wanna?
No, I think that was essentially it. We talked about making some of the things, especially in terms of elevation, recommendations as opposed to requirements, because the new flood maps are coming in anyway.
Let the flood
We've got
maps
the-
speak for
Yeah.
themselves.
Sure.
Let them speak for themselves.
Yeah.
And
The other
then,
thing, though, that I would think would be part and parcel of this is the flood maps, I don't think are looking too far ahead. I think they're probably trying to play catch-up. Now, I don't
You're right.
know what
We-
your
we-
opinion
we-
is on that.
the flood maps, I don't know, they went from 8 feet to 13 feet. And I don't know what that means.
Well,
And I think they're based on models,
And
based on current,
what can happen in the future based upon, based on current sea level
Right, but it's not-
observations.
right, but they're not looking 10 years out or
Right,
20 years
or
out.
worse yet, end of the century. And, you know, you build a house now, and it's still gonna be here in 70 or 80 years. Typically, I mean, their design life is
Well,
30 years
you know, I
theoretically.
mean, you know,
Doesn't
if you
work
have
that way.
if you have a 1.5-foot sea rise in 50 years, I mean, you could make that, I mean, the data is so,
It's all
Yeah,
over the
but I-
place, and it
so
keeps
over
getting
the place, and
smaller.
to make a decision about this is
I
awfully
think the issue is a little
Wanna
different.
go?
I go, I get babysitter.
Yeah, very quickly, I think the issue
Unless you have anything to
is,
report on from
Yeah.
committees and stuff?
No.
Yeah. I think the issue's a little different, frankly. John, I saw, he didn't see me, but John was at a
Hi.
meeting in the Newburyport Library.
I'm sorry?
You were at a meeting, a
Oh, yeah.
presentation in the Newburyport Library by a
Yes.
man called Bill Sargent, who is a local, very experienced writer and expert on the whole sea level issue. And one of the things that I would take both from his presentation, and there are going to be a couple more, one next week on Monday, the 21st, at the Refuge, as long as they've got the key in the door, you know, is this, and that is that we are going to have more issues with storm damage on Plum Island, which are going to put at risk the water and sewer system installed 10 years ago. And if you've been reading the newspaper today, you will see that the water and sewer system is already under some other threats to have to do with its engineering potential problems, right? And
But the
so.
meeting is
Meeting right
tonight.
now.
Yeah.
Meeting on Plum Island tonight.
Right, so one of the things that I'm
secret
looking
about
at,
it,
and then on top of that, one of the things that came out in the last couple of weeks in terms of, you know, being in the public domain in a letter, is that depending how you count the numbers, since the introduction of water and sewer to the island, there has been a net increase of about 800 bedrooms. Okay, now what that means, based on the overlay district, is that that means anywhere between 6 and 8.
Where's that data from? That's great, that's very interesting.
I don't know where that number came from because it was in somebody's response to one of the newspaper articles, but I've seen it before. And I'm sure, you know, it's there. It would basically be from our building people and
That's really in 10 years.
Newburyport. Yeah,
And that's between both communities.
that's both that's the whole island.
I find that believable.
Right, well, I do, and so that would mean, since some people were allowed to add 1, but some people were also allowed to add 2 under certain circumstances, right? I think.
Yes, if you had a one-bedroom,
Yeah,
Well,
right?
no, if you had
one
one,
bed-
you can go to 2. If you had 2, you can go to 3, and 3 was the max.
Okay.
Right,
Thank you.
but-
So you couldn't add, okay.
right, you couldn't actually add 2, but some people effectively added 2 because what happened was they added a bedroom that was much bigger. They rebuilt their house. If you look at plans, what happens is that no matter whether the FAR worked as it was supposed to or not, anyway, a lot of those things are up for argument because architects have different versions than engineers have different versions than planners. But what you've got is you've got a system in terms of the water and sewer, which is essentially very close to critical capacity. And if it gets pushed any further, it will be. And so if it fails, for some reason, even if it's only temporarily,
Now, when you say capacity, is that water capacity or system capacity?
that's system capacity, okay? And again, depending who you speak to, they will say that's true, that's not true. But all I'm getting at is that DEP believed that they were putting, by the constraints they put on the 2 communities, they were going to see a controlled, as it were, non-runaway development. And my contention would be that we've had close to a runaway development out there in terms of the increase.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I just wasn't here.
Well, okay, I mean, for among other things, and Linda and John have been around long enough to know, the number of permanent year-round homes.
Oh, it's
Has-
mostly all permanent down, there's very few.
Right, I
There's
mean,
only a few
has-
shacks left.
Right.
Yeah, but 10, 15 years
There
ago,
were, it was,
half the community
So-
maybe was,
So David, let me,
Right.
well, more like 20 years ago.
I got,
well, okay,
I got a report from David
Yeah.
Mountain
yeah.
that I needed to, did you printed that out?
did.
So let me see if that, now that I can read it, I'll see if it makes sense. But it was done by a water, environmental firm and an engineering firm for the city of Annapolis. And not that we're comparable to the city of Annapolis, but it was, you know, a very short report, maybe 22 pages, that talked about a, you know, description of the problem, and then going through various regulatory responses that are, here's what we do today, here's the probable impact, and went for about 4 or 5 pages on the various kinds of things that might be able to be done. And my response to Dave was, well, gee, that's kind of interesting, since it's gonna hit both Newburyport and us. What about us sharing, having a consultant come in and do something like that, as opposed to you, me, Martha, what's the guy's name, who's the planning director, and only because, have the consultant come in and do a study about what is gonna happen in Newbury and Newburyport over the next 50 years, and make recommendations. I think that's not a bad way to go, and let's spend money on it.
Right, because what we're looking at is we're looking at a radical change in what kind of
And
tax
often, and because
generator.
often what happens is you need the outsider to come in and say, guys, you have a problem. You know,
Or you could perhaps ameliorate the problem if you did
if you,
this, this,
yeah,
and this.
no, here's the problem, and here are your mitigation techniques.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, I just think that that has some possible way of being effective. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm agreeing. it's become a new science in the civil engineering world. What do we do about this? You got
Yeah.
basically a two-part problem. One is the still water rise. It's just happening for a lot of reasons. The oceans are expanding, that's part of it. Ice is melting all over the world, glaciers are melting, the polar ice cap is melting, da-da-da-da-da. Pieces of Antarctica are floating away and melting. So between those, you got a higher still water elevation, plus because of the screwing around with the atmosphere we've done, we have far more severe storms expected. Wild swings, and we've seen it this year. I mean, with the forest fires, with no rain at all in places, other places, Colorado was virtually flooded out. It just goes on and on. And that is something else, and that storm surge thing is going to, not the organization, but the phenomenon, that storm surge thing it can be phenomenal in the future. I mean, we're looking at, I can see Market Square underwater.
Well, you know, none of us experienced what Brooklyn and Staten Island, New Jersey experienced, but I was down, my niece
We are
lives,
lucky we didn't.
I mean, my niece lives, in Brooklyn, and she lost everything. I mean, just lost her business. They had a warehouse right on the Brooklyn waterfront, and was just gone, just gone, destroyed.
There's issues on Plum Island of public safety. I mean, if that island breaches, you've got an enormous number of people that have no way to be gotten off.
I'll tell you.
I had my own little windmill of a few years ago.
When you think, where would
Sorry.
that breach? You mean just,
Well, for example, there's one place in particular that has everybody worried, and that's right by the center, close to the center.
right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, maybe you go through the back blocks, but if you've got that much water out there, you can't traverse the Plum Island Turnpike.
Right.
So, you know, how do we get people off the island? Some years ago, somebody had a heart attack down near the point, and they were working on the bridge, the ambulances couldn't get through. By the time somebody had the wit to call the Coast Guard, and they sent down a boat with 47 with an EMT on it, the guy died. So a few years ago, Dave Vine and I were just, as a hobby, and this is, I forget the lady's name, they left town. She was very dynamic about chasing money. Begins with an F. I think you know, they're associated with the lighthouse.
Yes.
Yeah. And I can't remember their names,
No.
but when she left, there was everybody sort of yawned and lost interest in it. But Dave and I were trying to figure out how to get that pier functional in a sort of way at the old Coast Guard pier at the point. So that if there was a problem and you couldn't get at them this way, you could send a 47 down and pick them up.
Right.
And I talked to the chief down at the station, and he was all for it at the time. But those things take money.
Yeah.
This is something, a draft that's been given to us for review, but it's evacuation
Aha.
under different hurricane scenarios. Zone A, which is all the purpley stuff, would be under category 1 and 2. And zone, and I love things that get to stay.
That's so odd. That just doesn't make sense.
Is the yellow.
That's Fordham Way.
Well, it's the high spot.
Oh, so this is where Kathleen lives?
Right.
Yeah, those are little high spots. Those are little high spots.
Right, but all the rest of us are, we all gotta go.
We gotta go.
There's something
progress.
wrong with that picture, because we're at elevation roughly 50.
Well, this is not the inundation, but this is the area that they're saying should be evacuated.
Oh,
So,
The purple.
right.
ooh, that doesn't make sense.
No.
What?
I mean, John, your house is
Yeah.
higher
house is
than
like
this.
right there,
It's
yeah.
higher than
Of
this.
course it is.
Yeah, well, they're saying
Oh,
my
this
house
doesn't
should
make
be, and
sense.
I'm 35 feet above sea level.
Right, and you're supposed to go.
You're 35, Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm
Yeah.
50.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
This is actually the inundation map.
Lovely.
Okay.
Inundation.
And the
Inundation,
the greens are the inundated, yeah.
right, so the light green is
Yeah.
category 1.
Well, Merrimack did come through here a couple of hundred years ago. That was the mouth. This was all salt.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
That's what this church was.
I believe that maybe another mouth maybe was the break that Fordham, where
Oh,
all
really?
those houses went.
Yeah,
Yeah, much earlier,
that could have been,
yeah,
yep.
right. Anyway, so it's so, isn't it?
So why is all of this in, is that category 4?
What does
Why
that
is-
mean?
Is that Martin Burns? No, that's the common pasture, I see. Okay.
That's
that
the-
is definitely- that's
the-
15.
The solar panels that.
Yeah,
are-
Yeah,
right,
that's
right.
about 15, that whole area,
Yeah.
15 to 17.
Wait, how old is this?
Are we gone then with it?
Oh, it just came out.
I think this needs something special.
What's it called? What's the title of it? Inundation map?
Hurricane surge inundation.
So if there were a hurricane of category 1?
No. I don't know what that means. Category 1 is simply that, oh,
It was already inundated any kind of high tide.
oh, yeah. Category 2 storm, 3 storm, and 4 storm?
Well, those category
Yeah.
hurricanes, okay.
Ah,
Hurricane
yeah,
category.
right.
All right, okay.
And you can see it's interesting because if you combine, you know what, if you combine this with evacuation routes for Seabrook, it gets very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
So category 4, well, it goes up to category 5, doesn't it, for hurricanes?
Tornadoes are 5, I'm not sure about.
Okay.
Well,
No, 4, that scale goes to 4.
So 4 is the
yeah,
worst?
this
4
goes-
is the worst, yes.
So the worst hurricane, this is gonna be the worst flooded? The worst inundated?
It won't get,
No, no,
inundated
it's-
until we have a
it's
Cat 4.
incremental.
then how do you read this, the FEMA 100-year flood zone, which is only like down here? That doesn't make sense.
Well, that's in
Yeah.
addition to.
In addition to.
Yeah.
Right, no,
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah,
But you don't pick up any in additions up here. You
Yeah,
would
but
think you would,
category
wouldn't you?
4 is not a 100-year event. We
No,
get
it's
lots
not.
of those.
No, it's
That's
not.
probably a
Yeah.
5 or 10-year event.
Well, no, is category 4, 120 mile an hour wind? Is that
In
like the
that vicinity,
hurricane
yeah.
of 38?
Hurricane 38 was definitely a Cat 4.
yeah, because there
That's
is,
the most severe we've
Yeah,
had,
that's
right?
as bad as it gets. Up
well,
here,
no, there
yeah.
is a 5.
Is there a
There
category
is,
5?
there's a category 5, but not in this
Oh, okay.
Not in
What is
this
Katrina? What was Katrina?
scale.
Katrina was a 3 to a 4 in there. It kept bouncing back
Yes,
and forth.
Right, it depended where you were.
Yeah.
Boy, that's a
Some-
lot of salt marsh.
Right, right.
It is amazing.
Well, I
So
mean,
that's roll slang.
yeah, I can tell
I
you
can't
that,
read that, what's that?
What's that?
What's that?
River View.
That's Riverview.
Okay, so this is mine?
That's you.
yeah,
Yeah.
but now,
And here's me, right there. See that
many
little-
years, many years ago, okay, I was up here on Old Town Hill, okay, right here, okay, when we had a tidal surge and onshore wind.
All right.
We had like 65, 70 mile an hour winds, and
And you go like
every-
this and it blew you away?
No, but seriously, everything you see here that is green
Was white.
was underwater
Right.
and white.
I've been,
Right.
I've had similar experience up there.
That was scary.
It
Yeah.
is
I have
scary.
had similar
And I looked
experience.
out there and I thought, oh, that little dark line on the horizon, that is Kettle Hole
Yeah.
on the refuge. That's where, you have big, large dunes that are sort of 50 feet high.
High Sandy,
And
et
the
cetera.
rest of it was almost underwater.
Well, I think, suffice to say, I think we want to move on our master plan with the subcommittee.
Yep.
I think we'd like to see what happens in the next couple of weeks with the FEMA stuff.
Yes.
And then I do have a note back to David saying, do you think this is something we could hire a consultant to do? And share it with Newburyport, and I'm waiting to hear from him. So I think,
Okay,
we'll
right.
see what happens.
No, I think it's a very good suggestion, John.
And,
Well, you heard that they're starting to get serious about it. The mayor had a meeting either yesterday or today. I never
Well,
heard back
did you
from
go-
them,
you
so I
never
did
heard
not
back?
go, no. Either the mayor didn't want me there, they wanted to keep it in the family,
Right.
or the lady forgot to ask. I don't know which, but I didn't want to push it.
okay. So on,
But they started, is my point.
and it's interesting.
They've
So do we-
started what?
Are we done?
Serious
No, not yet.
interdepartmental planning
Oh.
before the deluge.
So it'd be nice to hear what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, they've got how many planners do they have, 5 or 6?
Real plan is probably 3, they got 5 or 6 people in the
Staff,
department.
Right.
staff?
They got Jordy, what's her
Right,
name?
who's, yeah, Jordy's the senior project manager, Julia, who's
Ju-
she's Concom.
She's Concom, yeah, she's
Yeah.
only very part-time.
What's the planning
Like
director's
20,
name?
15 hours a week.
Oh,
Port, Andy
who's-
Port.
Andy Port. yeah.
Emily was half-time, right at, she's still there?
I thought she's gone.
Oh, she's gone,
she's
oh,
gone.
okay.
So they really have one
Part-time, but
plus.
she has a baby.
Yeah.
And Andy.
Okay, so liaison reports, anything further from the board's meeting?
I don't have anything to
Nope,
really talk
nothing
about.
from me.
Concom, nothing
Nope.
from MVPC?
Nope,
No, we meet
Can I-
tomorrow.
Can I have a call for
so moved.
German,
adjournment?
so moved.
All those, second,
Second,
all those in favor?
aye. Did it all, how's
Right,
that?
she did, she filled in for all of the